For centuries, one singular image of Christ's return has been etched into our minds. Prophecies, sermons, art, it's all pointed our collective gaze toward one city. But what if there's another map? A completely different story, one preserved not in stone, but in a living, breathing faith.
What if those maps were redrawn? We're going to explore an ancient tradition that suggests we might have been looking at the wrong continent entirely. This isn't a story that challenges the prophecy of the return itself, but its starting point, that changes everything.
And here's the fundamental difference. On one side, you have the conventional view that most of us know, a return to the historical Jerusalem. But on the other, you have this ancient Ethiopian tradition, and it speaks of something else entirely. A revelation from another Zion, a new center for God's covenant here on earth.
So how do we even begin to understand this perspective? Well, it starts with a scriptural foundation that's frankly a lot broader and in some ways even more ancient than the one most of the world is familiar with. You see, the standard Western Bible has 66 books. That's the canon that was settled on. But the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, they never accepted that limit. Their Bible has 81 books. And it's within those additional sacred texts that we find the key, a foundational claim that completely alters the course of prophecy. And here is the absolute heart of it. The tradition holds that the Ark of the Covenant didn't just vanish into history. It moved. And you have to understand, the core belief is that wherever the Ark rests, that is Zion. So a simple act of movement becomes this world-redefining event. To really feel the weight of this claim, we have to travel back in time, about 3,000 years, to a legendary meeting between a queen and a king. An encounter that, according to Ethiopian history, literally changed the address of God's covenant with humanity. So the story goes like this. It starts with Queen of Sheba. She journeys to Jerusalem, not for riches, but for the wisdom of King Solomon. From their union, a son is born, Menelik. When he comes of age, Menelik travels to meet his father. But when he returns home to Ethiopia, he brings back more than just a royal blessing. He's accompanied by the Ark of the Covenant itself. And that's the moment a new chapter begins. The moment the Ark leaves Jerusalem, well, that's the theological turning point of this entire narrative. This wasn't just some object changing hands. This was understood as the very presence of God moving from one place to another. And we have to wrap our heads around what the Ark actually represented. It wasn't just a sacred box. In Hebrew tradition, it was the literal throne of God on earth, his physical dwelling place. So where the Ark rested, that's where God's glory was physically present. Its location wasn't symbolic. It was everything. Now, the Ethiopian tradition is very, very clear on this point. They do not claim the Ark was stolen. The story is that it was given, that this was a divine transfer, a sign that God's presence had chosen a new home and a new people to guard the covenant. And taking on that sacred responsibility? Well, it had profound, lasting consequences. For millennia, the identity of an entire nation, its culture, its government, its very sense of time, was all shaped by this one singular duty, to guard the throne of God. Just think about their calendar. Most of the world uses the Gregorian system, but Ethiopia's calendar, which is rooted in ancient texts like the Book of Enoch, a book that's part of their Bible, remember, it runs 7 to 8 years behind the West. And this is not seen as some minor difference. From their perspective, they aren't behind at all. They see it as a deliberate alignment with a different clock, with God's sacred time, not the administrative time of empires. And just think about the implication there. If you're watching for prophecy to be fulfilled, what if you're looking at the wrong calendar entirely? This belief is woven into the very fabric of their society. For centuries, their kings traced their lineage directly back to Solomon. Their priests still preserve rituals that echo those of ancient Israel. Worship isn't a reenactment of history, it's a living, unbroken continuation. They say that even today, a single monk is chosen for life to guard the Ark, and he never, ever leaves its presence. So when you put all these threads together, a different scripture, a hidden ark, a sacred timeline, and a nation of guardians, they weave together to create a radically different expectation of the second coming. And here is the crucial reframing of the prophecy. It's not about a descent to a place that was left behind centuries ago. It's about a revelation from the place where his presence has been dwelling all along, guarded and waiting. Which brings us to this profound idea. That maybe the return isn't to a place that was forsaken, but to the one place that held fast to the covenant, the place that quietly guarded the divine presence for 3,000 years. And so this ancient tradition doesn't leave us with a neat answer. It leaves us with a profound, lingering question. Where has God's presence been dwelling all this time? Because according to the sacred map, the answer to that question might just determine where the entire world will witness his revelation.